Welcome, CNG 124 to Monday, beginning week 14. We have one more week left. This week, we're going to take a look at, let's see, doing a lab in IPv6 in Windows 10. And that's going to be a little interesting. But I'm more gearing up for you guys at this point to start preparing yourselves for the final exam and skills final. We see a wireless LAN presentation. We do a quick quiz in wireless LAN, not land. I guess you can say wireless LAN since it's a different type of topology, really. It could be its own land. But we look at IPv6, expand upon that from what we did last week when we learned IPv6 about IPv6. It just kind of transitioned to this week, and it should be a little bit easier for those of you that are on Windows to transition this lab. If you're on a Mac, though, make sure you reach out and ask some questions in the Google Hangouts if you're having any difficulties there. So this week, when you work through the labs, make sure that when you're done, this should be a relatively easy week. Yeah, no more readings from Netacad. Make sure that you are really going back 2 week. Was that spring break week? The week before spring break, week 9, going back and saying, okay, let me run through Lab 15 through the rest of them again. Make sure you have that down, a system, how you approach designing a network. I've had students, in my face-to-face courses come in and not be able to complete the skills final just because they didn't know how to which routers to use, which switches to use, what cords to plug in. They were just using old models on their final and turning in that old model. Or I have had a student turn in a packet tracer that had different IPs. You'll get a 0 on that. Don't try to cheat it. Because 15% of your grade on each test is a huge amount. Make sure that you're practicing for these. That's the only thing that we have in week 15 is just those skills final and that final exam. So definitely start rehearsing in these next 2 weeks just for the finals. Just keep that in your head. Keep practicing. Keep flowing with that packet tracer layout. And that's the best advice I can give you for that is sit there and say, okay, can I do this? Fill out the tables, transfer your topology, make sure that you're aligning yourself with the most success you can get and get that 100% score because those are going to have huge impacts on your grade. I can't stress that enough. To definitely, this we have a very simple lab in IPv6, so you have like 2 weeks to really rehearse packet tracer and prepare yourself for the skills final. And then I bring up the skills final because that one's gives students the most difficult time, just because it is packet tracer, based on packet tracer. Can't stress that enough. So with that, I'll definitely have everything graded. It's 8:31 now. I'll jump on grading on everything and hopefully get a large chunk of it graded before I have to jump in my first meeting. And yeah, that's the best exit strategy I can give you for this next 2 weeks and a couple days, is to really just start practicing packet tracer. Make sure you have it down. Make sure and if you can't, hop in Google Hangouts. Ask people if they have. Ask if there's anyone that wants to rehearse with you. You can use my WebEx anytime you want. It should be open any time of the day if you want to get in there and show each other how you're doing it. Sometimes it gives other people ideas on how to improve their quality, or if you see somebody else's steps and say, hey, you know what, that's a little bit better idea than mine. That'll help you improve how you're doing packet tracer. Definitely start taking a look at that. One usually on campus, there's a certification you can get for completing this course. It's a network fundamental certification from Microsoft. Um, the campus testing center, the campus's testing centers are not open, and I want to say this is just at the Larimer one, I believe. Um, but the MTA itself is just a proof that you've mastered what you've learned and applied it to a industry certification. The certification is free. Well, it was free. I don't know if it is going to be free or still is free since I'm off campus and I'm on the line. But definitely ask about it. The MTA is a certification that lasts for life. So once you get certified in it, you have it basically until you retire and even past your retirement. So definitely go out and get certified with that. If you have any questions, reach out. If you need to meet up to discuss some homework, hop in Google Hangouts. Um, it goes right to my phone, so I see it pretty easily. And most of my meetings, I can just pick up my phone and answer stuff. Um, so if you need help with preparation for the finals, do reach out. And once again, these next 2 weeks are really going to be rehearsing what you already have down. And once again, if you've mastered something like, let's go back to week 13 and hop in this one, I believe. Is it this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, it's the last week. So if you saw in week 12, I'm trying to find it. Here we go. So as you saw in week 12, I gave you an assignment and didn't give you enough spaces. So we have should be 8 spaces, 4 and 4. But if you count the subnets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You should have been creative enough to add another 2, excuse me, another 2 rows to adequate your subnetting, to make your table adequate enough for subnetting. Um, the only thing I can do, and if you remember earlier, when I started to give you like when we were doing those tables of subnetting, and I'd give you like a broadcast address or a network address. Kind of threw a couple people off being like, well, this is a broadcast address. Once again, it was just an IP address I gave you and say, okay, find the network range of this address. So once again, as we move into our, as we move further on, keep aware of key information and say, okay, is this what is the table asking me to do? And enter it there. Of course, I'm preparing you guys for the final that's coming up. And let's go back to 14. Was it last week? Make sure you're looking at the skills review. And once again, this is going to be very similar, extremely similar to the final. Make sure you can do this and make sure that you are, following what I'm asking for. Once again, don't get complacent. Look at the IP configurations. Look at what I'm asking, how to name stuff, host name, Ethernet interface. Use the first usable address from the appropriate network. One above the network address. Configure the PC NICs with a static IP subnet default gateway. Use the host IP of the next available host. So what would these be? One right after this one here. Make sure you follow those 2 very detailed, very specific to get all those points on your final. Once again, I can't stress enough that there's a lack of preparation and attention to detail when we approach these finals. And that usually what hurts people the most for their grades. And with that, I will end the video here. If you have any questions, reach out through Google Hangouts. Remember, I am mostly available, and most times through WebEx. And if you say, hey, do you have time to meet in WebEx now? I should be able to do that, or I can send you a quick text back and say, hey, I'm in a meeting for the next hour. Let's meet at this time. Or can you meet at this time? And with that, have a good start of the week and start preparing for the end of the semester.